You're listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 87. Welcome to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 87. This is your host, Brian, and I wanted to thank you so much for tuning in. The All Day Ruckoff podcast focuses on the GRT and rucking community and includes interviews, motivation, and advice to keep you informed and get you ready for your next event. In this episode, we have an interview with Cadre Dan where we talk about the history of the GORUCK Heavy. I had a ton of fun talking to him about this. It's an amazing interview. And before we get into it, I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my buddy Luke for connecting Dan and myself and getting this going. So Luke, thank you so much for doing that. This is actually going to be the first in a 3-part series. This episode is the history of the Heavy. The next episode is going to be some updates that are being made to the Heavy vision. And then the third episode is going to be a fun one, and you'll just have to wait to hear that. As always, I want to give some thanks to those who have taken some time to leave a review on either iTunes or on our Facebook page. This week we've got a 5-star review. Content is always spot on from Brian. In-depth interview with a veritable who's who in the rucking world. He always lets his guests speak and gives them free rein to go off on tangents, yet manages to course correct them back as needed. And much like Ron Burgundy, has a voice that would make a Wolverine purr. Okay, maybe not quite that smooth, but still a great listen. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I truly appreciate it. I love having guests on and letting them speak. Obviously, that's why I have them on, not to talk at them. So I'm glad you're enjoying that. And thank you for the Ron Burgundy comment. Definitely appreciate that laugh. If you want to support the podcast, as always, you can leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or on our Facebook page. All of those are truly appreciated, and I read them all. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. And here's the interview with Cadre Dan. GORUCK Heavy. I remember when that was announced, just such a huge event. No one knew what it was going to be. People were thinking, is it like doing back-to-back toughs? What's this going to be? Or back-to-back challenges, because that's what it was called at the time, right?
Yeah.
It was the challenge.
Yeah.
Is it just like that? Is it something more? There was so much, mystery behind it. And then people started doing the first few events. As GRT, we started getting some of the info about it, and everyone was getting really excited. So where did the idea for the GORUCK Heavy come from? Oh,
it's a great story. So when I first came on with GORUCK, I did class 17, and it was in Raleigh. And after I did the class, I talked to Jason and everything like that. He found out I was a Green Beret. He hit me up. It was like, hand me his business card, and he was like, "Hey, give me a call, like in a week." I was like, "Okay." And I gave him a call, and he was like, "Hey, you want to be cadre for these things?" I was like, "Hell yeah." When can I start? He's like, "Well, we got these classes coming up and everything like that." And when I did the class in Raleigh, it was like in February, and I had a deployment coming up, and then some other training events and everything like that. So basically, I couldn't even come out and do a class until the very first ascent, which was class 001. And so I came on cadre for that. But I mean, I still hadn't at that point, ran the challenge, the GORUCK challenge. So I did my first class down in Wilmington, and I had Cadre Lou shadow me, and he's like, "Yeah, man, you're good to go." So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get my foot in the door as being cadre. So I started running as many events as I humanly could. So I had I think it was 3 weekends in a row. I went to Dallas, Savannah, and there was another place I went to. I can't think of off the top of my head. So I banged these events out. And one of the things that I noticed was there was guys doing back-to-back challenges. All right. I was like, wow. I mean, you got to seriously make bad life decisions to do just one challenge, let alone 2. You know what I mean? So, and you have to, and for me to frame it a little bit of how bad of a life decision that is, at that time, the first challenge started at 01 in the morning. And then the next challenge was started at 10 o'clock at night, right? That same night. So Saturday at 01 was the first challenge. And then Saturday night at 10 o'clock was the second challenge, right? So, we advertised the challenge to being, 8 to 10 hours long and 15 to 20 miles covered and everything like that. But with, GORUCK getting, bigger and bigger, and with, some new cadre getting hired on and everything like that, all of us cadre tried one-upping each other. So we were inevitably, we were getting to the point we were running 14, 15-hour challenges, right? And then you had a couple hours break, and then you ran another 14, 15-hour challenge. GRTs were doing both. So I was like, why don't we just do a 24-hour event? You know what I mean? It made sense to me. And, logically, I went through my head and everything like that. So I was like, okay, I wrote this beautiful email and, about how I think we should do a 24-hour challenge and everything like that. And it was right around Christmas of 2011. I sent the email off, and I'm like, man, Jason's going to bite on this. He's going to love it. It's going to be great. And he emailed me back, and he was like, no way. I was like, what? He was like, nope. He's like, we're not there yet. I'm like, Jason, we have people literally doing back-to-back events. And then on top of that, they're talking cash money on the Tough page about, doing, back-to-back challenges. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, this 24-hour thing is going to kick off, right? So then, in January, he called me up and was like, hey, I'm coming up to Fort Bragg. I think he was meeting with some SF guys here or whatever. And he's like, hey, man, how about me, you, and Lou? We'll sit in a hotel room and we'll talk out your event. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, all right, man. So I was, I got all prepped and everything like that. I'm like, all right, man, I got to really sell this event and everything like that. So we got this. So Jason got this cheap ass motel here at Fort Bragg, and we go to this hotel, and he had Java with him. Lou was there, and he had a couple cases of Bud Heavy and regular Budweiser, right? So he's like, all right, man, lay it on me. So I laid it on him, and the original name of the event was going to be called the GORUCK Trek, right? And pretty sure Webster defines the trek as a long and arduous journey, right? So a 24-hour event. It was going to be, double the challenge time and then also double the miles. That's where you get the 40 miles and then a 24-hour period. So we were talking about it, and he was like, you know what? I think we need to evolve a little bit. Let's start looking at doing some Jason Bourne stuff. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, man, these guys are going to build apparatuses. They're going to carry logs. I'm going to give them an hour of free time. We're going to do land nav. We're going to do small unit tactics. I was like, no, there ain't no Jason Bourne time in this. You know what I mean? I was like, no, man. It just threw me off. But at the point he told me that, I think I was already 6 beers deep. So then I actually started thinking about it. I was like, actually that's actually a pretty wild idea, because at that time nothing existed that we knew of. You know what I mean? Out there where we could take some cool spy stuff or whatever you want to call it and morph it into an event. So that's where the GORUCK Trek was born. So we basically spitballed back and forth, and we pretty much wrote the SOP between beer number 6 and beer number 24, I think. And I gotta tell you, I was so hungover the next day. I was dying the next day. That was definitely worthless the entire next day. But what came out of it was the Trek, not the Heavy. So that was pretty funny. We do the Trek and everything like that, and the feedback we were getting was that the GRTs really liked it and everything like that, and it was really cool, man. Some of the stuff that we were doing was really, really off the wall shit, and people loved it. So we just kept going with it and everything like that. Later on that year, so now we're into 2012, right? And Jason hit me up, and he was like, hey, man, we're gonna run this new event. It's gonna be a 48-hour soul crushing event and everything like that. And I was like, sweet, here's my idea. So I blasted them like, hey, this is what I think this event needs to encapsulate. It needs to be an individual event. It needs to we need to really throw the hammer down. We need to have maybe a couple guys finish this thing. You know what I mean? So that foreign selection, but also in that conversation, I put in there, I was like, look, man, we need some kind of event to prep these guys that want to do this event that we're conceptualizing here, this individual event. So that's where the Heavy came from. So the original name of the Heavy, it went from Trek. Jason threw it out to call it GORUCK Diesel. And I was like, no, I'm not really feeling that name. I just wasn't feeling. I'm like, let's call it the Heavy. I was like, let's call it the Heavy because they're going to be carrying heavy stuff for a long time. You know what I mean? And you already stole my name of the Trek, so I had to come up with something else. So that came out to GORUCK Heavy, right? Basically, it was just a dream state, dream state SOP. We had something kind of codified and everything like that on paper. We hadn't launched it or executed or anything like that, right? So there was a 24-hour custom event that was down in Gainesville, Florida, and a couple of cadre went down there and they ran it. And some of the lessons learned I took from that, and we built the actual first Heavy SOP on that. We had already done class 000 of selection, right? That was the original, the individual event that I was speaking about, right? So we had class 00 that went on, and then we had class 001 came out, class 002 came out, and I was at both those selection classes. And in class 002, Jason was like, hey man, I want you to brief me the Heavy concept. I was like, okay, done. So after selection class 002, we were in the old team house that was in Jacksonville Beach. And I had a couple of cadre that were there and everything like that. And I was like, all right, here it is. Here's the Heavy concept. And I had a beautiful 40 slide PowerPoint presentation, probably had animations and all kinds of other craziness in it. 'Cause I put a lot of time into this thing, right? I pitched it to Jason. He was like, that sounds awesome, man. Yeah, we'll look to execute this later on this year. I was like, no, we can execute this right now. And he's like, well, we don't have anything on the schedule. I was like, I promise you, if I go on the GRT page and I launch this out, I promise you I'll have this event sold out. And by sold out, we meant by 30 people. And he was like, all right, challenge accepted. So I did. I went on the GRT page and I launched the Heavy from there. And the first Heavy was going to be class 001, and it was going to be at Fort Bragg, on Fort Bragg, in February 2013, right? Within me launching it, the class sold out in less than 48 hours, tapped out. I was like, whoa, all right, we got some interest. So I had to work spreadsheets and people getting slots and trading, slots and everything like that for this class and everything like that. Cause we capped the cadre at 4. Cause it was literally the first Heavy, you know what I mean? So we didn't want to have 300 people show up. So we had to cap it,
Oh, for sure.
And the other thing too, we were running it on Fort Bragg, Fort Bragg proper. So I didn't want to run 300 people on Fort Bragg, the place where I work, which is a military installation, and have something go bad. You know what I mean? I really did a good risk management on it and or a good risk assessment on it. And I was like, we got to cap this thing at less than 100. 73 people came to the very first Heavy that was on Fort Bragg in February 2013, and 37 finished. Now, just like anything else is brand new, you have no idea. You really, honestly, have no idea what to expect. You know what I mean? There was short of a couple Facebook posts, a 24-hour custom challenge. Wasn't a whole lot of information about this event and what the GRTs could expect. So we're like, all right. It just boggled my mind that we only had 37 people finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that threw me for a loop. I was not expecting that. I was expecting probably get a couple people to quit. I wasn't expecting to have a 50% attrition rate, right? And especially, keep in mind, man, by that time, man, people had done back-to-back challenges. That wasn't like, some new concept or anything like that. That was, people were doing them. And then we had by that point, we ran like 3 selection classes. So like, we had some hard chargers out there, that had done some really extreme endurance events, not just GORUCK events, but a lot of other, endurance events and everything like that. I was just not expecting 37 to tap out. Now, coupled with, the unknown, the unexpectedness of the event and nothing really being out there and how to train and how to prepare for it and everything like that. Coupled with that also, the weather here at Fort Bragg was absolutely atrocious for the first 12 hours. I mean, like, it literally, as soon as I started my in brief, it started raining and it didn't stop until like noon the next day. I mean, it was just miserable out there and it was cold. It was like in the 40s. So we just had a ton of people. As soon as the sun came up, I think everybody kind of looked at each other. That was covered in sand and mud because we had taken them to one of the baseball fields here by the 82nd Airborne Division. And we were just doing cadre things. And we were losing people left and right. And I literally spent 2 hours driving back and forth in my blue pickup truck, picking up people that quit to drive them back to their cars to the start point, and then go. And then anytime I would show back up to meet the class, like there would just be a gaggle of people standing there, and I'd be like, "Not your day, huh?" And they're like, "Nope, like we're done, like right on." And I took them, back to their cars and everything like that, and I definitely felt bad for some of their participants because I mean they were covered in like around here we got this like red clayish like sand. That stuff is not very nice to upholstery in your own car and definitely not in rental cars. So felt kind of bad for them, but I was like, well, you can just keep staying out in the rain and you'll get washed off and everything like that. It was just wild. When I kept showing up with my blue truck, there was like I was just throwing people in the back of the truck and you have to understand, like, at any normal regular event, man, like, you know what I mean? But like, all right, you got your quitter cash, we'll call you an Uber, it's not your day, whatever, no big deal, right? But like, I'm not letting you wander around Fort Bragg.
Right.
We have to provide the mechanism for you to get to whatever your mode of transportation is to leave. So literally showing up every 20 minutes, I'd have a truckload of people that quit, and we lost a lot of folks and everything like that. But at the end of the day, man, it was pretty eye opening with that many people that tapped out and everything like that. And I was like, well, we just validated this SOP. You know what I mean? It was good to go. And some of the cadre, we talked about it, and we're like, the more information that gets put out by this event, the attrition rate's going to just naturally just going to go up. And we'll get like onesies and twosies and everything like that, because people are going to know what to do. They're going to be prepared and everything like that. They're going to know what's expected. I mean, hell, even right now, there's tons of videos, tons. I mean, this podcast, you know what I mean? There's tons of material out there for folks to get prepared for the heavies.
Yeah,
definitely wild. I was not expecting that high of an attrition rate.
It goes both ways too, because there's a lot of content out there to get people ready for the event. And there's a lot of content out there to show people that, they might not be ready. So maybe don't sign up just yet. Because back then, like you said, there was nothing anywhere. And so you're like, I want something new. I guess I'm signing up for this. I have no idea what it is. And so you had no idea to level set if you were going to do well at the event or if the event was just going to eat you up.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%, man. Eat you up. No kidding. That's the truth. And, and it's funny because a lot of the people that didn't make it that initial heavy, later on throughout the years of running heavies, I would see them at other heavies and they were fine. You know what I mean? They did fine, because they based off the experience of that very first heavy and everything like that armed them to prepare, make better preparations, train a little bit harder. Especially train a little bit harder, packing food. I mean, there's people that just did all kinds of boneheaded things that, for a 24-hour event that if I would go up to, any GRT that had done a heavy right now and been like, hey man, so I had this guy at the very first heavy, he did this, this, and this. Do you think that's a good idea? They would be like, no, hell no. I don't think that's a good idea at all. You know what I mean? but yeah, man, a lot of information out there about the event now. And so anyway, so we ran that first event, man, and then we had a bunch on the schedule and whatnot. So we had this PowerPoint slide that all the cadre are kind of just basing off of and everything like that. But there wasn't really like a Word document kind of codified. It's more or less like a beautiful PowerPoint slide with bold statements and everything like that. We pushed it out to the cadre and just started running heavies and whatnot. So I had so basically I ran that very first heavy, and then I ran like a couple challenges, and then I went to Afghanistan, and I came back later that year, like in the fall, and I, while I was in Afghanistan, when I could, I tried keeping track of the heavy, gauging some feedback from the community and whatnot. I mean, everything looked pretty good, and I was like, oh, okay, so, it's good. It's just, it's just a new event. It's got to get some some groundswell and everything like that. And I came back from when I came back from Afghanistan and everything like that, I got a phone call from Chase, and I'll never forget. I was out in my my garage, and I'd just gotten back from work and everything like that. And no kidding, he was like, "Hey, bro, the heavies need some love." I'm like, "What do you mean the heavies need some love?" I was like, "I thought this thing was like, from all the aggravation that I've dealt with to get this event, when I mean aggravation, I mean like easy aggravation. You know what I mean? Maybe aggravation is too strong of a word, but with all the stress involved with getting this event up off the ground and then executed and then ran and everything like that, I thought everything was going great. But I'm a cadre that's up here at Bragg, and I had been in Afghanistan. I was down at GRHQ, reading the reviews of the event and, seeing the numbers and, all that stuff that headquarters is like really good at tracking. And so he's like, "Yeah, bro, you gotta codify this a little bit better in a written SOP and everything." And I was like, "Okay, all right, yeah, no worries." So I had a college class that I was taking at that time. I can't remember the name of the class, but like I had to write something that fit into the mold of writing the actual heavy SOP. So I emailed my teacher, and it was supposed to be like a 5 or 7 page paper or whatever. And I was like, "Hey, I got this thing I want to write, and conceptually in my coconut, this thing's going to be long. We're talking like 20, 30, maybe 40 pages." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, can this count as my assignment?" And I was like, "I don't expect you to read the entire whole thing and everything like that. But what I can do is I could frame the very like first 5 to 7 pages or whatever with exactly what you want for this assignment. And then, I can go on the rest of the SOP, and you don't have to read it if you don't want to." My teacher was like real supportive, and she was like, "Yeah, absolutely." She's like, "You know what? I'll read the whole thing." And I was like, "Okay." So I sent it to her, and she read it, and she was like, "Wow." She's like, "That's super detailed." She's like, "It's like overly detailed." And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to like, really like, give the cadre something like a really good starting product to execute the heavy and codify this in an SOP." And she's like, "Okay, well, great job. Here's your A." And I was like, "Sweet." So I had it, and I sent it down to headquarters, and like the other cadre that were down there, they're like, "Bro, I had to like drink a 6-pack to read this thing." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, that's surely the idea, man. You're cadre and you're about ready to run a heavy. You like, crack a 6-pack, crack a couple beers, read over the SOP, plan the class and everything like that." Because I mean, like literally the way I wrote the SOP was like, "Hey, this is what the heavy is. This is what you should do during the heavy. This is what you absolutely should not do during the heavy." And it was long. It really was. I mean, 40 pages is now that I look back on it, that's absolutely ridiculous. I think the older I get, my attention span gets shorter. And I think if I was like brand new coming to GORUCK as a cadre, I'd be like, "No, 40 pages, bro, give me the cliff notes. I don't got time for that." So in that SOP though, what I did have was a 1-page like a cheat sheet. Like, if no kidding, you got assigned a heavy and you had to like execute it tomorrow. Here's like the absolute like most important critical things that you have to know. So a couple things with the heavy. One of the things that this is straight feedback from the community. that I took, because while I was writing the SOP, I reached out to the community on the Tough page, and I was like, "Hey, man, hit me on the heavy, good, bad, indifferent. I'm all about candid feedback." And so I got some great candid feedback, and there was a couple guys that wrote long, lengthy emails that I actually ended up copying and pasting and putting in the SOP, like as the kind of like a primer, as a so what, like why is this SOP getting written? Why is it this long? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, I took their feedback seriously, and one of the things that I took from that was like the PT test, because there was no, like, in the beginning, there really was no PT test. It felt too much like a 24-hour challenge, and that was not that was not what we wanted with the heavies. We wanted them to be, a separate event. So we're like, there had to be differences between the heavy and the challenge. Now, you could sit there and you could look at a tough and a heavy right now and be like, there are a lot of similarities, and it's supposed to be like that, but there definitely is supposed to be differences too. So the PT test was one thing that I wanted to write in there to separate the heavy from the tough. So the motivation for putting the PT test in there was, over the selection classes, and we had selection class 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. We had GRTs come down there and fail the selection PT test. They were coming down there and they couldn't do push-ups, and they couldn't do sit-ups, they couldn't run, they couldn't do the 12-mile ruck and everything like that. So I was like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do like a smaller, a little bit smaller version of that PT test, and I'll put that in the very beginning of the heavy. And that's like an admin portion, like an admin thing. Like, hey, here's a PT test. If you're wanting to do selection, do the heavy, because I'm running pretty much the same PT test, so you can see where you're at. And then, oh, by the way, the rest of the event, is just a soul stealer anyway. So you're going to be able to gauge how you are prepared for GORUCK selection. So the PT test basically was just, to go back through, it basically was just get participants ready to go to selection. And that was the genesis behind that. The 12-mile ruck march, the idea behind that was like, all my Army training, 12 miles is this magical number that we have to ruck. When I was in the training to get my Green Beret, we always did 12-mile rucks. They were always timed and everything like that. And then even when I was in the regular Army, we always did 12-mile rucks. I mean, these were like, usually at least twice a year we did a 12-mile ruck and everything like that. So I was like, a way to bridge between military and civilian is to bring, the things that we do in the military to the civilian population. So let's bring the 12-mile ruck. So I put through the 12-mile ruck in there. So like the first like 5 hours of the heavy was dedicated towards doing push-ups, sit-ups, and then a 12-mile ruck. And then the fun would start after that. So that's basically where we came, how we came up with the PT test and everything like that. To a greater extent, it works pretty good. It's been working for years with the PT test. I don't necessarily know that the data supports that, because the PT test is in the heavy, that's going to necessarily guarantee your performance in selection in any way, shape, or form. But either way, that was basically the genesis behind the idea. It was a theory that so far hasn't been proven.
What I always thought those were good for was a good gut check, almost for if you should sign up for a heavy or not. I mean, because I didn't have all this information you just told me. When I look at a heavy and I see, okay, you have to do the PT test and then a 12-mile ruck. If you're even feeling a little bit nervous about rucking 12 miles, then maybe you have some training to do before you kick off on a heavy.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we discussed as a cadre. We were like, all right, man, like, so, we with the challenge at that time, it was still the challenge. At that time, we liked the unknown. Like, hey, you're going to show up, you're going to meet this Green Beret on a street corner. And I mean, at its core, you're pretty much going to do Simon Says with a special operations cadre for XX amount of time. So we thought if we put some predictability into what you're going to do in the event, not the whole event, but what a part of the event, like, hey man, if you can do this PT test at these standards, that should gauge how well you would do in this event, if not complete the event. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And it feeds off exactly what you said. Like, it's on the website: push-ups, sit-ups, 12-mile ruck. Before I would even sign up for an event, I would do push-ups, sit-ups, and do the 12-mile ruck in the time standard that we outlined. And then I'm like, okay, good. Hey, I can do the standard. I got it. Now I just got to work on all the other lunacy that the cadre is going to throw at me, which, is inherent in any good training plan and everything like that. So, yeah, I mean, that was like that was pretty much the genesis behind having the PT test in the heavy, as part of like the admin portion. And like, I've different heavies, I've done different things. I've done like heavies where I did the PT test at the very end. I've done the PT test in the beginning. I've done the 12-mile in the beginning. I've done the 12-miler in the middle. I've done the 12-miler at the end. I remember my Atlanta class. I had Atlanta heavy. We weren't anywhere near Atlanta, by the way. We were like I think we were like about 40 miles to the east, out in the mountains, I think, or the west. I can't remember right off the top of my head. I mean, it was a couple years ago. But we were out at some greenways and everything, out some trails running up and down the mountains and everything like that. And so we were at probably about hour 20, and we were exactly 12 miles away from the start point. And I was like, all right, guys, we got one thing left to do. I was like, well, actually, we got two. I was like, I need you guys to load up all the coupons in the truck over there. Everybody's all excited. They're like, oh, man. And I heard one of the guys like, man, I think we might do an early index. I was just smiling. I was like, yeah, we're definitely not doing that, but nice try. And so they got done loading up the coupons, and I was like, all right, guys. And I pulled out my 12-mile brief, and I briefed them. And like, the other cadre with me was Heath, and he was like, Dan, you should have seen the looks on everybody's face. You like stole all their air. Like, looks on their face, Dan, was absolutely priceless when you briefed them that they had to do the 12-mile to finish the event. And I told them straight up, I was like, check it out. You got 3.5 hours. It's 12 miles. There's going to be a cadre with you the entire time. It's a team event. You're all going to stay together. If you guys finish on time, we index. You don't finish on time, then we got some other activities to do, because you obviously didn't get it, the teamwork aspect of pushing your buddies to meet the desired end state of finishing at the time standard and whatnot. And bro, these guys finished in like 3 hours and 29 minutes and 30 seconds. I mean, I was standing there with the clock. I was like, looks like this heavy's going to go a little bit longer than 24 hours. But I mean, they finished all of them. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I've done the 12 mile, and the other cadre have done that too. You know what I mean? The SOP, it has in there the admin portion, the PT test, the 12-miler and the PT test and whatnot. But it provides flexibility for the cadre to do the 12-miler whenever they want. But ideally, they do it at the very front end. That's why most of the heavies that the community has done, it's always in the very beginning.
So I'm curious. So I took part in one of the first few heavies. My heavy class was class 9. And so that was before we had brought in the PT test, the 12-mile test. You mentioned that you had gotten some feedback that HQ had received, and you had copied some stuff that you'd been emailed into the SOP, and then you implemented the SOP. It has a plethora of information, 40 pages plus the PT test. Did you notice a difference in the feedback once you changed the heavy?
Oh yeah, like it was almost instantaneous. So there was a class down in the new SOP got it got pushed out to the cadre and everything like that, and actually, it was Big Daddy that actually ran that class, and it was down in Texas. I want to say Austin, but I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, Big Daddy went line by line on that SOP, like, and the feedback they got from that was like, wow, this is it right here. Like, this was awesome. You know what I mean? Like, the community really embraced the heavy SOP and everything like that, which, obviously, I felt real good about it, because I mean, you're throwing out you're throwing out all this stuff, and you're like, and you hope it works. And ideally, man, like, ideally, in a perfect world, like, I would have codified all this in writing, and then I would have went on and executed it myself to validate what I had written in that SOP. I mean, that's just, I mean, the practicality of that in anything in life in general is that's pretty much how you'd want to do something like that.
Right.
But I didn't have that opportunity to do that. I literally threw this on paper, and I just went through all my experiences of being a cadre, all my experiences being a Green Beret, doing operational deployments and whatnot, all the feedback from the cadre, all the feedback, the most important part being the feedback from the community, and, took all this stuff and put it on paper, and then threw it out there with the hoping to God that it would work. You know what I mean? That the community would embrace it, and they did, and it was great, and it's worked ever since.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that, because, I mean, you wrote every line or chose every line to be in those 40 pages. I mean, that documents, a huge part of you. And then to put something like that out there, I mean, I've had, personal posts on the website. I've put out videos. I put out all this stuff. And every time before I click that button, I'm like, man, I hope everyone doesn't hate this. Execute. Yeah. Right.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And, yeah, I mean, it's my hat's off to Jason. I mean, the amount of trust he had in me to do this, is pretty high. And then obviously, I mean, it's his company. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's the one signing off he's the one underwriting that risk. And he had enough faith and trust in me to, empower me to do this and everything like that. And then kind of the other and one of the key things that I definitely wanted to hit that I kind of glossed over was the empowerment aspect of it. So when Jason called me to, like, hey man, I need you to, like, put some emphasis in this SOP. It needs to be codified, a little bit better, blah, blah, blah. He really empowered me to come up with this. And I don't know if he did it on purpose and everything like that, but he was like, I just want to let you know, from this day forth, you are now the director of the GORUCK Heavy. Like, I was getting fucking knighted or something like that. You know what I mean? And it was just, and I, like I said, I was standing out. I just pulled up to my house. I remember getting out of my truck and seeing him call me, and he was, on the phone. He was like, "You're now the director of the GORUCK Heavy," and I'm still the director of the GORUCK Heavy. Like, on the website, all the other cadre and everything like that, I'm the only one with this knighted title and everything like that. It's just pretty funny. Empowerment is pretty huge, and you can get a lot of things out of doing that. And being a leader, being able to empower your subordinates to do things is pretty powerful. You know what I mean? And I'm glad he had enough faith and trust in me to codify this heavy SOP in writing, and then further see the execution throughout the past couple of years and everything like that. So it's been awesome.
That's so rad. So was Jason at the first heavy at Fort Bragg?
No, I had Garrett, Rich Haas, I had Patrick. I think it was just the four of us. Yeah, it was just the four of us at that one.
So you've got this idea of how the event's going to go through your head. You mentioned that you thought, maybe a handful of people would quit the event, and it turned out you had about a 50% attrition rate.
Yeah.
How did you feel calling Jason and telling him that? Did you think that, he would be like, yes, like this is what we were hoping for, an event with a 50% attrition rate? Or were you like, man, I sold this as a tough team event, and here we are, 50% are quitting?
No, I see what you're saying. So the funny thing is, man, is like none of us cadre care about attrition rate. And attrition rate is not as sexy as it sounds. Like, yeah, man, we run the hardest event because we only have 10% finish. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, what about the other 90%? That's great. This is the ultimate team event, the GORUCK Heavy, right? So having just people quit en masse, there's probably some problems with the execution of the event. Now, don't get me wrong, man. I've had events where I've had like out of 30 people, I've had 10 people quit, and I'm like, the first thing I think of is like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And honestly, man, sometimes you just get those classes where it's just like some of those people just bit off more than they can chew, man. But like, never, never have we talked about like attrition rate being a metric for success. Does that make sense? It's never been like, it's never been in the discussion like, well, man, we had 500 people sign up for the heavy, so we're only handing out 250 patches. Figure it out. You know what I mean? It's never. I mean, I joke about it with the community and everything. Right. Like, I'm like, yeah, man, headquarters only sent me like 20 patches and there's 30 of you, so we better figure it out.
Yep, front leaning rest.
Definitely, but like the attrition rate doesn't play into it. Now, when I called Jason and I told him, he was like, yeah, wow, yeah, it's a little bit higher than I thought, and I was like, yeah. A lot higher than I thought too, and everything like that. He's like, you know, he started firing. You know, obviously he's going to start firing questions to me and everything like that. And you know, I answered him and everything, and he was like, "Okay, all right, right on, man. Sounds good. Let's see what happens for the next one." And we actually, no kidding, I think there was actually a black heavy class. Like there was.
I remember that.
I can't remember. I'm pretty sure the cadre was Ranger Jason, and I remember him texting me during the class and was like, have we ever had a black heavy class? And I was like, no, that's not really the intent. And he was like, well, bro, I got like one guy left. I was like, how many started? And I think it was like 15 started or something like that. And then like, if you've ever had a class of Ranger Jason, he's pretty rough. He's definitely a hammer in search of a nail. And I was like, bro, I'm like, what did you do? And he was like, I just did the PT test, man. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. You know, I've definitely, you know, with the 12 mile and everything like that. And oddly enough, Brian, like I've had the most people. I would say 85%, 75 to 85% of the people that quit the GORUCK Heavy quit after the 12 miler. That the 12 miler is what gets people, and We'll go into that. We'll go into that one a little bit later on what the significance behind that. But like, yeah, that's pretty wild. I was like, okay, yeah, but okay, so you might have had like 10 people quit after 10 miler, and then you probably issue a bunch of coupons, and then like 5 became 4, and 4 became 3, and then 2 became 1, and then the one was like, man, I got like 15 hours with the cadre by myself carrying all this. No, I'm done. You know what I mean? It's just how it worked out. It's crazy.
I remember seeing pictures of that on the Tough page. There was one where there was 2 of them left carrying some giant coupon between the 2 of them. And, you know, the post was up there, 15 hours left, 2 participants remain, GORUCK Heavy. And I was thinking, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, wild, man. Absolutely wild. Because I remember looking at the, you know, the Facebook posts and everything like that. And Jason me and Jason were texting back and forth. I was like, wow. All right. And I think that was during the, that was prior to the actual written SOP coming out. And that probably, no, not probably, that was also a factor in codifying this in writing. You know what I mean? And I'm not slamming Ranger Jason on running the event at all or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, people make decisions. There is personal responsibility inherent with doing a GORUCK Heavy, and those guys just decided it was not their day, and it just happened to be all of them. You know, and it is what it is. But we haven't had a black heavy class since then. I sure as hell don't ever want to have one ever, because that's not that's not the intent. You know, I mean, it's the ultimate team event, man. We're you know, your buddy to your left and your right when you're starting to, have those demons crawl through your coconut, telling you all kinds of awesome things like just quit, you can go home, it's a hell of a lot warmer. I'm cold, I'm done, all this other stuff. Your buddy's supposed to talk you out of that stuff so you can finish together. I mean, that's why it's the ultimate team event. One of the many reasons why it's the ultimate team event.
That was one of the early heavy events too. And things were, yeah. I mean, it kind of feels weird to sit here and say that, but things were just different back then. The challenges were different. I mean, I remember hearing about just hours of PT in a parking lot and they dropped like 50% of the class. And it was, I think maybe that's a lot of it has to do with the SOPs coming out, that a lot has changed since those early days.
Oh yeah, bro. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, we could probably spend plenty of time on that, but I mean, just to give you a quick example, man, when Jason ran class 17 that I was that I was a participant in, man, it was a guided suck tour. You know what I mean? Like it was like, I think it was 8.5 hours long. We definitely covered like 20 miles. And I mean, we did Indian runs for like miles on miles. It wasn't mission based. There was no team leader. There's no navigator. There was no real leadership into it. It was just like, show up, meet this crazy Green Beret or soft cadre, and follow him. You know what I mean? And to now where, I mean, like the challenges are like, I mean, we got all kinds of different challenges. We got challenges that are or the toughs now. We got toughs that are themed. We got toughs that are like, just a little bit different. We got like, so many lessons learned and so many experiences that like, it's a solid event. It is always going to be a solid event. And it was a solid event when Jason ran it. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I mean, like, I definitely, when I got done with that event, I was like, wow, that sucked. You know what I mean? And, I haven't done a challenge since 2011, but I did do a heavy last year. So and that sucked. You know what I mean? It was pretty miserable. So it worked. It all worked out, man. It was good. It was a good learning curve for GORUCK to go through and everything like that. There's going to be some hiccups along the way and everything like that. And you have to also keep in mind, man, like when Jason came up with this craziness, like there was nothing out there like this. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I mean, and Jason's quoted as saying like, he had like some, I think he had like Cadre Bo show up to the very first challenge and everything. I think the first challenge was like 5 hours long or something like that. And he did like 10 miles or something like that. And like, Bo, who ended up being Cadre, he showed up and he had like a case of beer. And Jason was like, "You sure you're going to want to drink beer through this thing?" And Bo's like, "Man, I got this. Easy day. I know exactly what's going to be going on." And then Jason, like his inside voice was thinking, "Hell, I'm the one running it. And I don't even know what the hell is going to be going on." It's just, you could see like the evolution of all the GORUCK events and everything like that. It's really awesome when you look back, especially for me, man. Because I've been honored to be a part of GORUCK since 2011. It was such a great opportunity, and to see where we were in 2011 when I came on, and there was like 3 other cadre and the owner CEO of GORUCK, and then like a couple backside support personnel, doing all the super important marketing and throwing the events out there and all the admin stuff and everything like that, to now where you got like GORUCK headquarters, like no kidding, where you like, I literally go down there and I'm like, I have no idea what these people are doing. I have no idea who half these people are, but whatever they're doing, it's working. So I'm just going to leave them alone because I don't want to screw up their chi. We have like 70, 80 some cadre out there right now. It's just so awesome to see the evolution of GORUCK and everything like that. And one of the things I think is important too, man, is like we keep evolving. We haven't gotten stuck. We keep reinventing the wheel and coming up with new stuff and everything like that. And even with the heavy, there's a couple of things we're gonna update to the heavy, but primarily that event is gonna stay as it is, because inevitably, man, some things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And people are still signing up and they still love it, and I'm still getting positive feedback from the heavy. It's just more now looking at different ways to execute within the GORUCK Heavy SOP for the cadre's sake.
Just wild. everything that's changed. I mean, like you said, GORUCK actually has an HQ now. It's not Jason's truck. And
Yeah, no kidding.
there's, so much has happened since 2011. And I mean, exactly what you alluded to, GORUCK does a phenomenal job evolving and fixing things that need to be fixed along the way, but not fixing things that, that aren't broken. Like, you're not changing up. You didn't write the SOP for the heavy just because you had time and you didn't have anything else to do. There was feedback gathered, and Jason said that this should be worked on. And just like all the other events that have changed, my first event was 053. There was no team leaders then. There was just, Indian run around the city and get smoked for days.
Yeah, exactly.
And so just looking at the things that they think need to be fixed and fixing those, and everything that's good, just letting it be good. It's been just wild to see over the years.
Well, I mean, feedback, man. Feedback is the feedback loop is so important. When the cadre, we talk to everybody, and we get that feedback, and we conceptualize it and then put it into action through the events and everything like that. But a lot of our changes or updates, or however you want to frame it, I mean, have been based off of participant feedback. It's not just a bunch of cadre drinking beer sitting in the room, like all of a sudden, like one of us geniuses come up with we get sprinkled with pixie dust from the Good Idea Fairy. We had a brain surgeon that was that did a 12-hour tough. It was like, hey, have you guys ever thought about doing this? And like all of us cadres standing around looking at each other like, nope, didn't think of that one. But also, obviously there is, we do sprinkle each other with, good ideas and all kinds of everything like that. And, we absolutely, all the cadre, we absolutely feed off each other. Even like with the heavy SOP, when I wrote it, I pushed it to multiple cadre to get their feedback on it and everything like that. And I've always appreciated candid feedback. I'm a pretty straightforward dude. Like just cut the bullshit. Just give me what I need to know, like straight up. Like I don't need it sugar-coated.
Yeah, I got time. Yeah, I got time to go through all the sugar coating. Just tell me what you're really thinking, so we can get this fixed and move on.
I'm not gonna have my feelings hurt, and actually, when I pushed out some of to the community for feedback, specifically on the heavy and everything like that, man, a couple of emails I got were pretty eye opening. They were like, yeah, in my heavy, all we did, we covered maybe 20 miles, and we just did a billion burpees or whatever, or like you said, we're just in a parking lot getting smoked the entire time. And I'm like, all right, man, that's not the intent of this event. That's not going to fly, man. That might have flown for that event, but that's not going to fly for the event, all the events. You have to get something out of these events, or you're not going to come back. Like there has to be something you get out of the events, and that's one of the key things about the heavy SOP is like, what can you take that you learn in this 24-hour period and apply to your everyday life, and that's important to us. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I mean, we are building better Americans, in multiple different facets, in multiple different ways, in multiple different events and everything like that. And we want, at the end of the event, we want a better version of yourself to go back into society and be a productive member of society. And that's important to us.
Absolutely. And so looking at the heavy now, do you know what class number we're on?
I think we're in the 200s, I think.
I'll take it.
It's horrible because I just ran a heavy. Like, but I screwed up that, like, the naming convention, but man, like, when I referred to that, the last heavy, which was the Robbie Miller heavy that I just ran a couple weeks ago, I referred to it as the second annual Robbie Miller heavy. I didn't refer to it as like
heavy class. And even the Joe Warner Bragg heavy, I refer to that as the fifth annual Joe Warner, which is the upcoming one, the fifth annual Joe Warner Bragg heavy. You know what I mean? Even though there's been 7 Bragg heavies, there's been 5 Joe Warner Bragg heavies, but like the actual class number of the heavy, like I got to look on the roster, and I'm so horrible about telling classes that I've really,
that's something I got to work on and get better at. Just got to make a mental note, like during the class, be like, all right, every 2 hours, I have to tell the class their class number because I suck at telling them that.
Well, if there's anyone listening and they're curious what their class number is, HQ does have all of them on record. So there's been a number of times where I've just messaged support and I've been like, hey, I did this Seattle class 2 weekends ago. It was the Veterans Day event. It was a tough. Do you know what the class number was? And they'll just send it right back. So they've got that on record, which is nice.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we absolutely do. Like there was some funny story about the numbering of heavies. So the 100th heavy, right? The 100th heavy, I picked to be in Nashville. I mean, it's Music City, man. It's a beautiful place. Great GORUCK community out there. There's a couple different ruck clubs, and again, it's Nashville. If you've ever been in Nashville, it's just a great place to go. And the other reason I picked there because that was the first class that I actually shadowed that I wasn't a participant. That was a challenge class number 37, I believe. And so I picked Nashville to be the 100th class, right? Well, there was a custom event. So when we had laid out the schedule and everything like that, there was a custom event that like popped up in between us deciding that Nashville was going to be the 100th heavy, and it threw off like the numbers of the heavies. So like, I don't know if it was that weekend or the weekend before, one of the cadre had told the class that was the 100th heavy. And it was like, no, that wasn't the 100th heavy. That was the 99th heavy. And the Nashville class is going to be 100th heavy. But that word never trickled down to them. But like on our rosters and everything like that, it was the 100th heavy. So it was like, and like, so when I made because I made a big deal about it on the tough page. I'm like, hey, this is the 100th heavy. Obviously the amount of gratitude and happiness and for all the community for making it for having us have the ability to even run 100 heavies. You know what I mean? I'm so thankful to everybody, and I'm pretty genuine. And there's a couple participants on the comment posted like, well, I did the 100th heavy last weekend at this location. It wasn't Nashville. And I was like, we kind of screwed up the numbering and the messaging a little bit. Shit happens. But it was pretty funny, man. But officially, the 100th heavy was in Nashville. And whenever I would like to do something for the 500th heavy, the 1,000th heavy. You know what I mean? And then I would like, and I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years. I've been wanting to do like designate an entire year and be at the year of the GORUCK Heavy. You know what I mean? Like, I have the Chinese New Year's. It's like the year of the rat or the year of the spider or whatever. You know what I mean? Having a year just dedicated with a ton of emphasis on the heavies. I think that would be pretty cool. I wanted to do that this year. It just didn't work out this year. There's just too many competing interests down at headquarters, and I'm not blaming them or dumping it off. It's all about timing, and it just didn't look right. It just didn't, and I didn't have enough conceptualized in my coconut to like throw a plan and like a vision down to headquarters for them to execute and everything like that. So, but I'm absolutely looking forward to doing something of that nature, doing like the year of the GORUCK Heavy and having like a ton of heavies all over the country, all over the world. So something to that effect. And then maybe change up the SOP a little bit, or make it, add some stuff, take away some stuff. I don't know. Again, you could tell that the vision in my head just hasn't connected with my mouth to come out, even when I talk to you on this podcast. So it surely isn't going to be bought off on at GORUCK headquarters when I try to outline this vision that I still need to work on that's in my head. So, but yeah, man, good things coming with the heavy.
That's what it sounds like. So when you thought about the first heavy event and you made your PowerPoint presentation, you pitched it to Jason, did you ever see it turning into what it's turned into today?
Oh no. At the onset, I was hesitant about having a ton of heavies out there. I I I I looked at this event like maybe only doing like 5 to 10 a year. That was it. Um, and something where like a lot more people come to the heavies. Whereas now we have I don't know exactly how many we have on the schedule, but it's absolutely more than 10. Um, but now certain heavies have more participants to show that come out and everything like that. Some have less, some have more. They're all over the freaking place. It followed the model of the challenger or the tough, and I think that's absolutely the way it should have gone. My initial thoughts on how many and everything like that were they're wrong. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that that's why we have headquarters, man. I'm a guy on the ground executing. They're smart people that are staring at numbers and they're, the marketing and the gear side and all the other, backside support down there at headquarters. They have visibility on all this data to make smart, informed decisions. You know what I mean? I'm staring at a map and I'm like, I think a heavy would look good here, ha ha ha. It's just, I'm glad there's smart people down there that figure this out. But like when so I actually do the heavy schedule, and how that works is how I envision. I use what's called the latitude line principle. So what that means is like the latitude line to go across the United States. I like to keep heavies right around a certain like kind of temperate climate, anywhere between like I would say 40 and 60 degrees ish, give or take 10 degrees on each side, right? So initially, I didn't want a heavy in August in Miami. I wanted to have a heavy in Maine in August and kind of keep like a baseline kind of temperature across the board. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So you choose the colder months for the traditionally warmer states, and flip it for the others.
Yeah. So so that's how I start the schedule, and then I look at obviously major cities, places we have a big GORUCK presence and everything like that, and I make recommendations. I make a recommendation, I throw it down to GORUCK headquarters, and they take it and they slice and dice it up, and based off the information, which is a ton of information that they have, they make the decisions on where the heavies goes. And that's absolutely the way it has to be. Because to a certain extent, I'm throwing darts at a board to be realistic, whereas they have more information to make a better informed decision. And the other thing to kind of go back a little bit, the other thing that I wanted for the heavies was I wanted the same locations, the same dates to have a heavy. An example, every Labor Day, I wanted a heavy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Every 9/11, I wanted a heavy in New York and Washington. Every February is going to be the Joe Warner Bragg heavy. And to a certain extent, GORUCK headquarters has kept to that to a certain extent, but they've also, based off of challenge or based off the toughs, the lights, and all the other events we got and everything like that, they weren't able to like completely hold fast with it and everything like that. So it's definitely give and take and everything like that with the heavies. But I mean, at the end of the day, like they make all the decisions. I execute, and I'm totally fine with that. I just provide them with what I think, and they run with it. You know what I mean? And it works out perfect that way.
It sure sounds like it. And I mean, just watching it over how it's unfolded over the years, I mean, it really seems to work out really well.
Yeah. No, it does. It absolutely does. And again, the guys down at GORUCK headquarters, I mean, they do a phenomenal job down there. They really do. Those guys are always constantly working, working through all kinds of different things. And anytime I've had to reach out to anybody down there for anything, it always gets done. And they're great folks down there. Like the Cadre are the face of GORUCK. You know what I mean? We're the guys out there pounding pavement and everything like that. But like, we are absolutely not able to do what we do without, the people in headquarters doing what they do. You know what I mean? And everybody feeds off of each other, and everything works on a really well-oiled machine. Sometimes the machine needs a little bit more oil. Sometimes it's running smooth, and that's just anything in life. Nothing's perfect, but those guys are as close to perfect as possible down there at headquarters, and I always appreciate the support I get from them.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this interview with Cadre Dan. When I was talking to him, I learned a ton about the history of the GORUCK Heavy, and it was just great to look back at where that event came from and where it's turned out. I'm really excited not only about this episode, but about next week's episode as well, because we're going to be getting into some of the changes that are going to be made for the Heavy Vision or the Heavy SOP, and what Heavies for 2019 and potentially future years are going to look like. So that's coming next week, and I'm very excited about it. If you want links to anything we talked about in this episode, as always, you can head on over to the show notes, or you can find them at alldayruckoff.com/podcast/episode-087. If you want to, you can leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or on our Facebook page. Those are truly appreciated. I read them all. They make me smile. And I just love hearing from people who have listened to the show. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for all of the support. It is truly appreciated. Don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive and drink hard, ruck harder.